Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Datavault podcast. I'm Neil Strange, CEO of Datavault, and we're joined today by Alex Higgs,
Hello.
our Automate DV specialist. Sorry to mention that, but yes, you're lead developer
No
for
problem.
Automate DV. Right, we've covered off on previous podcasts hubs, links, and satellites, the vanilla versions of them. And I thought we'd have a look at a particularly interesting variant on links today called the Non-Historized link, which is a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah, previously called transactional links.
Transactional links.
But don't use that name anymore.
We don't, because transactional was a particular use case for them.
Yeah.
And actually used on a broader sense.
Bit of
than
a
that.
misnaming, yeah.
So really what a non-historized link is a link with additional grain in it. And what do I mean by that? So you look at a traditional link. If you refer back to that podcast, we'll explain there more detail. But a traditional link takes a number of concepts and sticks them together, forming a unit of work. So these are the concepts that appear in that grain of that work. So you might have, as I said, you might have an order placed by a salesperson and a customer, and the salesperson's in a particular region. So there's 4 hubs involved in that grain, and you'll have a 4-way link that says this sale happened. Here's the customer. Here's the salesperson. Here's the region. Here's the order itself. Yeah. And then you'd have another grain for the order lines. So that order would have order lines, and order lines would point to the products and whatever else, back orders or whatever else is involved to fulfill that particular line grain as well. And the thing about that is then, okay, so we have a grain. The fact that the link exists means these things are tied together for a particular order. That works very well, but then sometimes you get data, and it used to be a lot of transactional data in here, and it's very similar thing. So things like logs or journals or things like that.
What about sort of banking?
Yeah, anything transaction-wise. So essentially what you have is a transaction happens. Let's look at a finance system, okay? So we have a transaction, and inside a transaction there's a number of posts that are made against your ledgers. Okay, accounts in your ledgers. So double entry bookkeeping means you can have at least 2 entries per transaction that happens, and they balance out. And depending on the finance system you're using, you might have 2, 4, 8, 12, however many lines posted as a result of that transaction. So for example, you might break out the VAT separately from the net, and then you're posting a gross somewhere else, and the 3 add up and balance out. So there's a number of ways that you might want to post these things. Now, if you look at the grain, well, each of those postings has the same grain. Yes, almost the same grain.
Yeah,
yes,
I see what you're saying.
And therefore you can get away. Correct that. They have a greater grain than the sum of the concepts involved.
Right. Yeah.
So in a sense, if you look at the concepts involved, then you're going to have multiple entries in that link for those concepts. But a standard link only allows you to have 1 entry per combination. So you've kind of got an additional layer of grain inside there, which is not modelable by a concept being added to that link.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that some column in that link has got to be added to the primary key to make each entry unique. And it's usually some kind of transaction number that's in there that you have to add to the grain to make that unique.
Yeah. Okay.
So essentially, the non-historized link is like a grain shift beyond the concepts that are involved in the foreign keys. You have to include an additional column in the primary key for that. Once you've done that, then you're able to model the whole stream of transactions coming in. This could be anything. I mean, transaction can be a measure, for example, on an Internet of Things device. It might be the temperature that comes in every hour off of a thermometer or an air quality indicator, or
Could be GPS.
anything that happens.
Yeah.
So each event itself is not a replacement of the previous one. It's a genuine measure that's come in at this point.
Yeah.
But like an Internet of Things thing will be the device at this location, at this time, well, actually, the device at this location is your Internet of Things,
Mm.
and maybe so the device, the measuring thing. So a device might have multiple measuring points on it. So you might measure temperature, wind, air quality in the same
Altitude.
device. Yes, so you've got
Yeah.
3 measures coming in. So you've got the device itself, the measuring instrument, and the location. That's your grain, but you might find that you've got a measure every hour going forward.
Mm.
So the measurement time is the additional thing in the grain. So your link needs to add this extra column to uniquely identify each row.
Yeah, it kind of groups all those
That's it.
things at that time.
So that's it. And you'll find most of the time it's transactions and logs and things which behave this way. Okay, so that's all you're doing is you're saying, the concepts involved are not enough on their own to uniquely identify each row. I need to add an additional column in there, which is not a concept, but I need to add that to make each row unique.
Okay, so would like an account ID for a bank account, if each transaction is a purchase, for example, would that kind of thing
This
work?
is the interesting thing there, because when
Yeah.
I often model finance systems, a transaction itself has a number attached to it.
Okay.
Yeah, so a transaction can be modelled as a hub, but the postings that happen as a result of that transaction are the non-historized bit.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's at least double entry, at least 2 entries per transaction in there, but often more.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Mhm. All right, but it's up to you. If you feel that transaction is not a concept that you want to use, you can collapse that up into your non-historized link and run from there.
I mean, I find when you look at a non-historized link, the columns and the information in them look very similar to a satellite.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you imagine you collapse it all the way down, so that you only have one concept that non-historized link points at.
I see where you're going with this.
So,
Yeah.
for example, we haven't talked about this. Yeah, I think we'll do this on a later podcast about reference data.
Yeah.
So reference data is a kind of special kind of hub, which is so trivial and never updated. It's just lists of values that you call it a reference table instead of a hub, because it's not worth trying to update it.
It's like an enum for
That's
those
it.
programmers out there.
Yeah. So so you might have, like, region might be an example. You might only have 4 regions in your business, and that never changes.
Yeah.
So you say that's a reference set rather than a new hub. That means that is now removed from the link. It's no longer can be used in the link as part of primary key on that link. You find that you then now need to start adding that back into the link to uniquely identify it, but the link actually ends up only ever having one hub it can link back to, because all the others have sort of disappeared off as references. At that point, there's no difference mathematically between the link and a satellite, because it only ever points to one hub.
Non-historized links in particular. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, and then there's a special kind of construct called a non-historized satellite, which we'll get to talk about later. But essentially, that's like a non-historized link with one hub connected to it only.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So the insertion pattern is quite simple. You're just saying, here's some new transactions. Please add them to the end of the transaction table. And you have to do a left outer join on that, because you might get a double feed of the same transactions. So you don't want to have mistakes where you load transactions in twice. So you're always doing insert anything that's new into that transaction table. We can talk later on what happens if you've got huge transaction tables and how you might speed that up.
Oh yeah, we've seen those, haven't we, in some clients?
Yeah. So anyway, anything you want to add to that? I mean, how we've done this in Automate DV is pretty straightforward, isn't it?
Yeah. I think because by nature they're non-historized, it actually makes the SQL quite simple. But you do have to remember why that it's simple. Essentially, you aren't tracking history directly, but you are logging things over time. But because they happened, they've always happened. You're not updating them, right? Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about one thing, which is, of course, the grain.
Yeah.
But then the second point we'll talk about then is the payload. So the thing about transaction data is very often that you do not edit the content. So if you've got an Internet of Things device running, you're not going to edit the temperature feedback on it, are you? If it's monitoring temperature, it's the value that it's measured.
Yeah,
Financial transactions should never be edited.
exactly.
Should never be edited.
It happened. That's true.
If you are convinced that the data would never be edited or corrected in any way, then you could say, why do I need a satellite attached to a link? Because the satellite tracks change over time.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the second feature of non-historized links, is very often you collapse the satellite called payload back into the link. So you don't have to make that join to retrieve data. But that only ever works if the record's never updated.
Yeah.
And Dan Linstead makes it clear, if you're in any doubt at all that it'll ever be updated, always put the satellite on it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you get another feed of a transaction with an edit to it, which sometimes happens in some systems, then you can record the change in the satellite, even if there's no update to the link itself.
So this is why I was saying earlier that if you look at a non-historized link, they can look similar to satellites. But when you have the payload is optional.
Mm-hmm.
It can just look like a regular link.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So read the book, I basically say. I mean, it's described in the various Datavault books, covered quite a lot on our training class if you come and learn about it as a developer, and covered off very well by some blog articles if you look out on the internet about them as well. So have a dig around and learn a bit. And I would always say there's some transactional links or non-historized links somewhere in your system when you build it. It's every business process has one somewhere in it where things are happening.
So should I be worried if I can't find one then?
No, don't be worried. But, they're not frequent in terms of everything's a non-historized link.
Yeah.
But they're usually somewhere lurking inside every business process.
I guess if you're a company that's tracking a lot of Internet of Things devices or
quite a few.
Yeah, or communications in some way, you're going to have quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. I hope that you found that useful. You can see attached to this the podcast some references to our user group website. Please do join that. Please do come along and sign up for the newsletter, because we'll let you know when various meetups occur. And we have an extensive program of meetups ahead for the next few months. So check out the schedule there. We usually have some very good speakers, including many authors, come along and talk to us about their latest research that they've been doing. Previous ones have been recorded, so you're welcome to have a look at them on the user group website.
We have a lot of videos.
Quite a few, exactly.
Have fun.
Yeah, and today we covered off non-historized links, which I think are interesting things, and we may well visit them back later when we talk about how to actually use them on a project and to make your project zing. So anyway, I've been Neil Strange and Alex Higgs, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.